parents skipped my wedding to join my sister's yacht proposal. 3 years later, they saw my face on a highway, billboard, and begged to meet. The morning of my wedding dawned with a sky so flawlessly blue that it appeared to be created specifically for us. Sunlight shone through the windows of our small venue, a refurbished old barn in Lancaster County that Ethan Monroe and I had fell in love with right away. I stood alone in the bridal room, my wedding gown hanging from a wooden beam. The lace detail captured the light in ways that made me stop and enjoy it. Despite the hollowness in my chest, my phone remained quiet on the vanity. No missed calls or new messages. I'd known for 4 weeks that my parents and sister wouldn't be attending. Mom had contacted me as I was finalizing the meal with our caterer. Her voice had that particular tone which she utilized when delivering news that she considered inconvenient, rather than catastrophic. "Rachel, honey, I don't think we can make it to your wedding." The caterer had stared at me as I tightened my grasp on the phone. "What do you mean you can't make it? It's in 4 weeks. Lily's boyfriend plans to propose next month. They're heading to Miami for the weekend, and we offered to assist with some of the arrangements. You promised to help with arrangements for a proposal that hasn't even happened yet instead of attending your own daughter's wedding." The words had tasted terrible as they left my mouth. Do not be theatrical. Ryan's family controls the financial business, and they are quite fussy about traditions. His parents are hiring a yacht for the proposal weekend and have encouraged us to participate. It would be impolite to decline. The caterer softly excused herself from the table. I scarcely noticed. "So, you're skipping my wedding, my actual wedding, for a proposal that may not even materialize for Lily's boyfriend's parents whom you've only seen twice." 3 times, my mom corrected. "And don't act silly. Of course, he will propose. He had already showed us the ring. It's 5 carats, Rachel. 5. Besides, your wedding is quite basic. Ethan's parents are already footing the majority of the costs, right? Simple." She spoke it as if it were embarrassing. Ethan and I had planned everything ourselves, paid for much of it, and decided what was important to us. Yes, his parents had helped. They'd insisted on covering the venue, but they'd done it out of genuine enthusiasm for our selections, not the thinly veiled displeasure my family couldn't hide. Ethan's parents are supportive of our decisions. They are not purchasing our wedding. My mother had sighed. "I don't see why you are so unhappy." "This is not surprising, Rachel. You have always done things your way. Despite our recommendations, if you dated Ryan when he expressed interest in you before Lily, you could have gotten the boat proposal." The memory of that talk seared as I stood alone in the bridal suite. Margaret, Ethan's mother, tapped lightly before entering, her smile warm as she brought in a tray of fresh pastries and coffee. "The makeup artist will be here in 20 minutes. First thought you might like breakfast." She hesitated, observing my look. "Rachel, honey, what is wrong?" "Nothing," I said, with a forced smile. "Just wedding day jitters." Margaret set the package down and grasped my hands in hers. "What? About your parents?" I nodded, unable to speak with the knot in my throat. "I'm really sorry," she replied, squeezing my hands. "But I want you to know how happy Thomas and I are to have you join our family. We couldn't have imagined a finer mate for Ethan." The ceremony was magnificent in its intimacy, with 60 attendees rather than the intended 64. Ethan's eyes welled up with tears as I walked down the aisle on his father's arm. When Thomas realized that my father would not be attending, he insisted on accompanying me. Hannah and Sophie, my college friends, served as my bridesmaids, while Marcus, Ethan's brother, was best man. We exchanged vows under a wooden arch decorated with wildflowers and fairy lights. The reception included local farm-to-table cuisine, craft beer from Ethan's favorite brewery, and a playlist that we spent weeks creating. We danced under strings of market lights with others who had decided to join us in celebrating. Even with the vacant chairs at the head table, everything was excellent. The honeymoon in Maine had been an ideal vacation. Ethan and I spent a week in a seaside cabin near Bar Harbor, trekking around Acadia National Park by day and falling asleep to the sound of waves at night. We fully withdrew from our phones, social media, and family drama. For 7 days it was just us, laying the groundwork for our marriage free of external pressures and expectations. Marianne, the owner of the cottage, was a silver-haired artist who resided there all year. She'd taken a liking to us right away, sharing local secrets that tourists rarely knew about. A hidden cove with tide pools teeming with starfish, a family-owned bakery that made wild blueberry pies from berries picked that morning, and a secluded cliff path with views that stretched to Canada on clear days. "You two have something special," she told us one evening when we drank a bottle of wine. On her porch, the sunset illuminated the sky in vivid oranges and pinks which reflected off the calm water of the bay. "I've been watching couples pass through here for 30 years. I know which ones will last." "What is our secret?" Ethan inquired, his fingers interlocked with mine. Marianne grinned as the lines around her eyes deepened. "You look at each other as equals. Some couples have one person continually gazing up and the other looking down. Never worked." She held up her glass and waved toward us. "You two, though, eye to eye." Her remarks resonated with me during our visit. Eye to eye, equal. It was everything. My parents' marriage was not everything. My bond with my family has never existed. Marianne pushed a tiny box into my hands on our last morning in Maine. "Wedding gift," she explained. "Open it when you need reminding." I placed the item into my bag, meaning to unwrap it when we arrived home. 3 days after returning from our honeymoon, I received an SMS from my sister. There were no congrats, no queries about the wedding or honeymoon, just a snapshot of a huge diamond ring on her finger and the words he proposed. "Mom and Dad hired a yacht with Ryan's family for the entire weekend. We're thinking about a June wedding at the Hamilton estate. Save the date." The anguish that went through me was shockingly tangible, causing a constriction in my chest and difficulty breathing. Despite skipping my wedding to prepare for this particular occasion, they couldn't even acknowledge what they'd done. No apologies, no wish you could have been there, just celebration and the assumption that I would play my part in Lily's beautiful life narrative. I gazed at my phone screen for a few minutes, before placing it face down on the kitchen counter of our new apartment. Ethan found me later, still standing in the same location. "Lily got engaged," I announced frankly. He threw his arms around me from behind and rested his chin on my shoulder. "Are you all right?" "They rented a yacht, Ethan. My parents, who were unable to attend their own daughter's wedding, leased a boat for my sister's engagement." "I'm so sorry," Rye twisted in his arms, suddenly recalling Marianne's box. "Wait here." I pulled the little gift from my bag, which was still partially unpacked from our trip. Unwrapping it carefully, I discovered a hand-painted stone within. On one side, there was an exquisite compass rose. On the other hand, phrases are painted in exquisite script. "The direction of your life is always your choice." A letter slipped behind the stone stated, "The most meaningful journeys frequently begin with walking away. Trust your compass." I returned to the kitchen, clutching the stone. Ethan stood where I had left him, concerned expression on his face. "No," I said, straightening my shoulders. "I'm done apologizing. I'm done hoping they'll change." As I spoke, memories poured back. Years of differing treatment between me and my sister were crystal obvious. When Lily turned 17, my parents presented her with a new automobile. When I turned 17 a year ago, I was given driving lessons and told I needed to save for my own car. For my high school graduation, they threw a little supper at their home. They leased a space and invited 55 people to Lily's graduation the next year. At every point the pattern was consistent. What Lily received for free, I had to earn or go without. "They've shown me who they are my entire life," I said, my voice more stable than I expected. I just refused to believe it. Ethan gripped my hands, his eyes steadfast. "Whatever you decide, I am with you. But make sure you're doing it for the proper reasons. Self-respect, not anger." His knowledge touched me greatly. This was not about penalizing them. It was about preserving myself, about making room for a life in which I wasn't always trying for unattainable acceptance. That evening, I wrote a quick email to my parents. "I've spent years hoping to get your approval and attention. I've excused your actions and blamed myself for not being good. Enough. I can't do it anymore. I need room to create a life in which I am valued. Please do not contact me for a time. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Rachel." I sent Lily a similar note congratulating her on her engagement, but explaining that I would not be attending her wedding. Then I banned their numbers, deleted them off my social media, and focused on the future I was creating with Ethan. The early days of separation were more difficult than I had imagined. Habits acquired over decades do not go suddenly. I found myself reaching for my phone to communicate good news before realizing there was no purpose. Unexpected surges of sadness would wash over me at unexpected times, not for what I'd lost, but for something that never existed in the first place. Unconditional familial support Ethan recommended treatment. This is a significant life shift. Having someone impartial to talk to might help. I first resisted. My family had always viewed therapy as paying strangers to hear your issues. However, the voice in my brain was just what I needed to leave. Dr. Lauren Hayes, a family systems specialist with experience in adult children navigating complex family relationships, was recommended to me by our insurance provider. What you're describing is a common pattern, she explained during our third session. Golden child versus scapegoat dynamics. It's not about who you are, but the roles you've been allocated. I don't feel like a scapegoat, I protested. They never blamed me for anything. The scapegoat isn't always blamed, she added. Sometimes they're just the one who's expected to accommodate, to understand, to make do with less. The one whose needs are secondary. Her remarks shed light on a lifetime of experiences. How I'd leered. To ignore my own demands. To cherish Lily's times in the spotlight while minimizing my own failures. How I had accepted the notion that desiring more was selfish and that I should be content with whatever attention came my way. Your decision to step back does not mean you are abandoning them, Dr. Hayes explained. It's refusing to engage in a dynamic that causes you harm. That is healthy. Through weekly sessions, I began to unravel the intricate web of family conditioning. Some days brought up righteous, purifying wrath which burnt away years of self-doubt. Other days brought such deep despair that it felt bottomless. However, the emotional storms became less frequent and severe, leaving way for something new, possibility. Ethan and I developed routines that supported our relationship. Sunday morning walks in local state parks, cooking ambitious meals together on Wednesday nights, and a monthly adventure day where we'd travel somewhere new within a 3-hour radius. We created customs that were entirely ours, free of familial expectations. His parents, Margaret and Thomas, asked us to supper every other Friday. Unlike my family's formal gatherings, when discussions were staged and judgments were veiled as care, these dinners were casual with real attention and easy laughing. Margaret never compared Ethan to his brother Marcus, never implying that one was more valued than the other. Thomas talked about both of his boys with equal pride. You seem different here, Ethan said as we drove home from one such evening. Be more easygoing. I'm not bracing for judgment, I said loudly. With my family, I always felt like I was auditioning for approval. Lily sent me an email 4 months into our family separation. It had gotten over my blocks by coming from her work address. Rachel, I don't comprehend what's going on. Mom and Dad will not discuss why you are not speaking to them. They only say you need room. My wedding is in 4 months and my maid of honor position is vacant. You are my sister. Whatever they did, please, do not penalize me for it. Lyles. The email revealed so much in its silence. She thought our parents were at blame without knowing the specifics, indicating a trend she recognized. Nonetheless, she wanted me to play my assigned position in her life, regardless of my sentiments. I wrote and erased 5 different replies before deciding on honesty. Liz, I am not punishing you. I'm making room to recover from patterns that have harmed me for years. The different treatment we've received isn't your fault, but I can't pretend it doesn't exist anymore. I hope your wedding is all you imagined. I hope Ryan makes you happy, but I will not be going. I need this limit right now. Perhaps one day we will be able to create a relationship as equals rather than as golden child and shadow sister Rachel. She didn't respond. I later learned from mutual contacts that she had requested her college roommate to serve as maid of honor. Their wedding images appeared in a regional lifestyle magazine with my parents beaming in the front row and the banquet at the Hamilton estate being as opulent as imagined. I felt a tingle of something as I scrolled through the web galleries, but it was not remorse. It was realization of how divergent our paths had become. Meanwhile, my own road took unforeseen turns. 4 months later, the startup incubation program approved my application. While working on my MBA, I created a company concept for customizable subscription wellness boxes that integrated Eastern and Western approaches to health. The notion began as a graduate school passion project to deal with the burden of studies and family disappointment. Years ago, during my undergraduate studies in biochemistry and commerce, I had an idea. My roommate, Hannah, had chronic fatigue syndrome, so I saw firsthand the limitations of traditional treatment. Doctors administered drug after medication, each relieving isolated symptoms but without addressing the underlying imbalance. Hannah, frustrated with their approach, began looking into alternative therapies such as acupuncture, adaptogenic medicines, and nutritional therapy. Western medicine sees the body as separate systems, she told me one night, as we sat cross-legged on her dorm room floor going through her increasing supplement collection. Eastern medicine sees everything as connected. I was originally suspicious. My scientific classes focused on empirical data, controlled investigations, and medicinal remedies. However, observing Hannah progressively regain her vitality through this integrated method piqued my interest in healing practices that my education had previously ignored. My grandma May had planted the seeds much earlier. She was born in Fagan Province and immigrated to America in her 20s, where she kept her traditional rituals while also adopting features of Western culture. As a youngster, I spent summers with her, enthralled by her medical cabinet, which had prescription bottles as well as fascinating jars of dried herbs, roots, and mushrooms. Balance, she'd say in her affected English, showing me how to make ginger tea for my upset stomach rather than going for Pepto-Bismol. The body understands how to cure itself. We simply remind it. My parents endured her old-fashioned medicines with hardly veiled disgust. Mom, she needs real medicine, my father would urge whenever I became unwell during visits. My grandma would grin, stand aside for pharmaceutical solutions, and then hand me her teas and tonics while winking conspiratorially. After she died when I was 15, I acquired her remedy diary, which had handwritten notes in a combination of Mandarin and English chronicling generations of healing expertise. I kept it secret because I knew my parents would dismiss it as superstitious rubbish. But, throughout college and beyond, I found myself returning to those pages, particularly during times of stress or sickness. My Zenita Wellness Company concept arose from a convergence of elements with my biochemistry background, giving scientific insight, my grandmother's traditional wisdom offering alternative techniques, and my business degree providing the foundation to properly combine them. The approach included tailored supplement regimens, adaptogenic herbs, targeted instructional components, and optional telemedicine nutrition delivery. Methods, consultations. Each subscription box would be created based on a thorough intake evaluation that addressed individual health objectives and concerns using a combination of evidence-based remedies from many healing traditions. My MBA teachers were thrilled about the notion, but my family disregarded it as just another of my unrealistic ideas. Dad had pushed me into corporate finance where he had contacts. Mom proposed pharmaceutical sales, claiming it was near enough to my interests, but with real money. The wellness space is overcrowded, my father asserted during a heated dinner conversation. And these diverse methods are simply trends. In 5 years they will move on to the next trend. It's not a trend, Dad, I responded. It represents a fundamental change in how people see health. Integrative medicine programs are being launched at major hospitals. Insurance companies are beginning to pay alternative therapies. Rachel always needs to be different. My mother had moaned to Lily as if we weren't sharing a table. Remember when she insisted on studying biochemistry instead of communications as we suggested? Lily, a communications major at the time, grinned. Not everyone can handle the hard sciences, Mom. The discourse had degenerated from there, with my evidence-based arguments disregarded as stubbornness and my enthusiasm misinterpreted as disobedience. I'd left that meal with a familiar heaviness, the weight of being misunderstood by those closest to me. Ethan believed in me entirely. He assisted me with the company's strategy, set up late-talking marketing techniques, and urged me to apply to the incubator program. His encouragement never wavered, even after I was turned down by the first 2 programs I applied to. Those rejections aren't about your concept, he said after the second dismal email. They're about fit and timing. The correct application will identify what you are creating. He had been correct. The third submission to a program particularly dedicated to health innovation had touched the perfect chord. The acceptance email arrived on a Tuesday morning when I was working at my consulting job, a practical employment I'd accepted after college to save money. I phoned Ethan immediately. They've accepted us. $20,000 in startup money plus 8 months of coaching. I knew they would, he said, his voice assured and pleasant. This is just the beginning, Ra. The program demanded a full-time commitment, so I would have to resign my consulting employment. The concept scared me. My parents' voices rang in my mind, irresponsible, risky, bullish. For a brief moment I considered reaching for my phone to seek their advice, a reaction resulting from Decades of indoctrination. Instead, I phoned Dr. Hayes to schedule an emergency session. "What is keeping you back?" she inquired after I had described my situation. "Financial worries, practical reasons, or the dread of proving them correct if you fail?" Her question emphasized the internal struggle. "The last one," I confessed. "If this doesn't work, they'll see it as confirmation that they were right about me all along." "What if it does work?" she challenged. "Will they see that as validation that they were wrong?" I laughed without humor. "Perhaps not. They'll either claim they've always backed me or try to minimize it. So, their opinion cannot be the deciding factor." She stated, "It's a no-win scenario if that's your metric for success." She was correct. I hadn't had direct touch with my family in months, but I was still instinctively seeking their approval and fearing their judgment. True independence means making judgments based on my own beliefs and assessments rather than reacting to their expectations. I tendered notice at my consulting business the next day. My supervisor Angela showed real disappointment at losing me, but offered to link me with possible investors. "Rachel, your notion has legs. With the correct support, you may truly revolutionize the wellness sector." 3 days later, I signed the incubation program documents. That evening, Ethan surprised me with a celebratory supper on our apartment balcony, complete with string lights, champagne, and takeaway from our favorite Ethiopian restaurant. "To Zanita Wellness," he said, his eyes mirroring the glittering lights. "And to my brilliant, brave wife, who's about to change how people think about health." As we clinked glasses, I felt a deep feeling of connection to myself, my values, and my vision. For the first time in my life, I was not torn between who I was and who others expected me to be. The relief was amazing. The following 8 months were a flurry of 16-hour workdays, prototype development, market research, and non-stop meetings. Ethan took on extra photography projects to augment our income while I established the basis for Zanita Wellness. The name combines Zen with the final 3 letters of my grandmother's name, May. By the end of the incubation program, we had raised an additional $300,000 in angel funding, completed our supply chain, and released a beta version of our platform with 250 test clients. The reaction was highly good. After the second month, our client retention rate had reached 90%, which was nearly double the industry average. 20 months after our inception, we raised $2.5 million in Series A investment. By then, our subscription base had surpassed 60,000 users. 7 months later, after being highlighted in Women's Health, Forbes 30 Under 30, and other major morning shows, our subscriber base grew to 85,000. As we approached our 40-year anniversary, Zanita was expanding faster than we had planned. Ethan came up with the idea for the billboard ad. "We should celebrate hitting 120,000 subscribers with something bold," he proposed during a rare weekend excursion to the Finger Lakes. "We've been so consumed with the business that we've barely taken time to process our success. Billboards are expensive," I argued, but the concept piqued my interest. "An old-school move for a digital-first company. Sometimes old school cuts through the noise," Ethan explained, refilling our wine cups. "Also, your narrative is compelling. A female entrepreneur, an original concept, and rapid development. In important marketplaces, your face should stand 40 feet tall." I chuckled, but promised to talk about it with our marketing staff. They quickly fell in love with the notion. We designed a set of 5 billboards in important areas. Around the Northeast with a basic design, my image, with our motto, Wellness Reimagined, and the Zanita logo and website. The Philadelphia billboard was the first to go up, carefully placed on I-90 so that commuters, particularly those commuting between my hometown and the suburbs where my parents still resided, would not miss it. I didn't intend it as a statement to my family. They were no longer on my radar. In the 3 years after we lost communication, I'd moved on from worrying if they ever thought of me. The hollow aching had gradually become filled with purpose, accomplishment, and true connection. Ethan and I had created a household full of laughter and mutual respect. We discovered our people, friends who showed up, celebrated our wins, and helped us overcome disappointments. Angela, from my previous consultancy position, had become a close friend and informal advisor. Hannah and Sophie stayed consistent throughout my life. Ethan's parents treated me as a daughter, not an afterthought. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. While I was discussing quarterly predictions with our CFO, Claire, my assistant, Brooke, knocked on my office door with an especially agitated countenance. "I apologize for interrupting, but there's A woman online, one who insists on speaking with you. She says she is your mother. My hand froze on the worksheet. I've been annotating. Claire glanced between Brooke and me, perceiving a sudden shift in energy. Should I tell her you are unavailable? Brooke inquired, already reaching for the door. I took a big breath. No, I will accept it. Claire, can we do this in an hour? After they departed, I gazed at my desk. Phones flashing light for almost a minute before picking up the receiver. This is Rachel Monroe. After our wedding, I took Ethan's surname, cutting off my final official tie to my family of origin. Rachel, it's Mom. Her voice sounded precisely the same, yet strangely foreign after 3 years of stillness. I know. I maintained a neutral professional tone, as if she were just another business contact. We noticed the billboard on our way to Lily's house yesterday. Your father almost drove off the road. She let out a short, hesitant laugh that faded swiftly in the quiet. Is that why you've called? To discuss my company's marketing strategy. Oh, of course not. We're phoning because her voice cracked. Rachel, why didn't you tell us? What about your own family? We had to figure out from a billboard that you're a wealthy entrepreneur now. The boldness of her inquiry took my breath away for a second. 3 years of quiet followed by a lifetime of conditional love. What did she expect? Was a press release delivered to their home? Despite their apparent lack of interest, did they provide regular updates on my achievements? I did tell you, I eventually said. For years, I've told you about my hobbies, aspirations, and vision. You were not interested. That is, not fair. We always wanted the best for you. No, you wanted what was simplest to comprehend and boast about. Lily's fiancé's family's affluence is easy to grasp. My enthusiasm for integrative wellness is too intricate and hazardous. Rachel, please. We've missed you dearly. You departed from our lives with no explanation. For 3 years there have been no calls or visits. Then you find yourself on a huge billboard. Do you understand how that feels as a mother? I closed my eyes and imagined the scene, their surprise at seeing my face above the highway, the hurried explanation to whoever they were with, and the frenzied Googling of my firm name once they arrived at Lily's house. Had they been so amazed, bewildered, or ashamed that they had no idea about my success? How did you feel about skipping my wedding? For Lily's proposal weekend, I asked gently. What was it like to charter a boat for her engagement, but not attend? My wedding? The line was silent for a few seconds. We made a mistake, she eventually conceded. We should have been there. Yes, you should have. The words came out more calmly than I intended. Mom, that wasn't a one-time error. It was the conclusion of a lifelong practice of being second choice. That is not true. We adore both of our girls equally. Please don't lie to me. Not now. She was silent again. Your father and I want to make amends, she replied finally. We want to be a part of your life again. Can we meet someplace and discuss face to face? Part of me wanted to deny to preserve the quiet I'd established, but another part, the one that had finally grown confident in her own value, was prepared to confront them on new terms. I have a lunch opening next Thursday, I replied. There is a cafe near my office called Eastwood, 1:30. Well, be there, she pledged, her voice filled with optimism. Should we bring Lily? She's also been inquiring about you. No, I said firmly, just you and Dad for now. After hanging up, I sat still, taking in the talk. Ethan would be concerned when I informed him, protective of me and fearful of the suffering my family may cause, but he would back any decision I chose. That assurance seemed like a protection against whatever may come next. Eastwood Cafe was located on the ground level of a restored manufacturing building 4 blocks from Zenita's headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in plenty of natural light, while exposed brick walls and wooden beams protected the spaces. Industrial past. I had purposefully picked neutral area that was near enough to my office for me to feel safe on my own soil. I arrived 20 minutes early and chose a corner table that provided solitude without isolation. Brooke had cleared my calendar for the afternoon, assuming without explanation that I may require time later. My parents entered at precisely 1:30 p.m., scouring the cafe until they saw me. They appeared older than I recalled, with Dad's hair grayer and Mom's face more lined. They proceeded to approach me with similar faces of apprehension, as if approaching a stranger who resembled someone they previously knew. Dad murmured, "Rachel." As they approached the table, he bent down hesitantly.